What's going on, everyone? John Matrix here. Hope you're all having yourselves a wonderful day wherever you're at. We're going to be jumping into some more Kaiserreich here in the universe of the Kaiserreich universe. Again, this is requested stuff for me to take a look at by one of my YouTube members. So links will be down below in the description, as always, to the original video without my commentary and reaction, and to Kaiser Cat Cinema's channel. We're going to be checking out What If Germany Won WW1 Kaiserreich Universe Documentary Episode 01. So check out those links if you enjoy this video. So go through it, give it a like, and if you enjoy his content, go over there and hit that sub button on his channel. So yeah, we're just going to jump into this video here. Going into, I guess we're going to start getting, we did a video already kind of talking about the origins of the mod and where the Kaiserreich like lore and universe like came from and how it started. But now we're going to get into, I guess, kind of the actual lore and story of the universe itself. So looking forward to seeing where this is going to take us. So yeah, let's jump into this video here. Monitor on. Let's go.
As German troops marched through Paris, the guns on the Western Front had finally fallen silent. The horrors of the Great War, which claimed over 30 million lives and wrought havoc upon all of Europe, had ended. The German Empire had triumphed utterly. That morning, the world awoke to a new age. The age of the Kaiserreich.
Pretty epic music here. What if Germany had won World War I, the world of Kaiserreich? It is honestly like both World War I and World War II. You know, it's interesting to kind of pose that idea of what would the world look like if those things had happened. And I mean, you could do that throughout a lot of different things in history. What if, you know, the Spartans hadn't been able to hold Thermopylae the way they did, and the Persians had actually won and gone through and wiped out Greece? You know, what if Alexander the Great never conquered the world like he did? What if the Mongolian Empire didn't become as great as they had? You know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many different things throughout history, and honestly, a lot of them are based around war of, you know, what would have happened if these different cultures didn't take prominence the way they did? What would the world look like today? Kind of a thing. So it's always interesting to think about these what if scenarios.
January 1917. Wilhelm II, Kaiser of the German Empire, holds a council with his military advisors. These councils are regular, but this one will bring about a decision that changes the course of the war. High-ranking military officials, including the head of the Imperial Naval Office, von Kappel, join Chancellor von Bethmann-Hollweg in urging the Kaiser not to resume unrestricted submarine warfare in the Atlantic Ocean, fearing the inevitable attacks on American shipping will draw the United States into the war on the Allied side.
See, now, I don't know as much about World War I as I do World War II. I know vastly more about World War II. World War I isn't as much of a subject that I've gotten into, other than it was another kind of period of innovation in a lot of different ways. That's when, you know, machine guns first came to be. That's when tanks first got made as a way to break through the trench warfare and things like that. And I mean, could you imagine that? Like, could you imagine the first battle where tanks are used and you're just sitting there in an MG emplacement, you know, on the other side of the lines entrenched, and all of a sudden you see these massive metal machines that are just rolling through and there's nothing you can do about it? Literally, like, nothing you can do about it. Like, that'd be crazy. So I'm interested as much to hear about, I guess, some of the actual history of World War I as I am to see like where this timeline is going to diverge from. You recall from last video the point of divergence? Right, exactly.
The opponents of unrestricted submarine warfare brace themselves for defeat when Erich Ludendorff argues in the strongest possible terms that unrestricted submarine warfare should be resumed. The previous year, this Prussian son of minor nobility had been raised to the rank of General Quartiermeister, a new role placing him in command of the German army's logistics and supply. In reality, the role was far more powerful, and Ludendorff was on track to become de facto dictator of all things military, in a duumvirate with Chief of the German General Staff, Paul von Hindenburg. It was perhaps this obvious desire for power that made the Kaiser wary of increasing Ludendorff's influence further. Had he been given the apparent authority to override the German Navy's own wishes, there would have been little standing in the way of his and Hindenburg's total dominance of the German state.
Interesting.
Wilhelm, seeing this, decides to act. After no more than a few minutes, the die is cast. The Kaiser has decided against resuming unrestricted submarine warfare. The decision will only delay, not prevent, the rise of Ludendorff and Hindenburg to supreme authority within the empire. But while it sacrifices the chance to starve Britain out of the war, it near eliminates the risk of the United States declaring war on Germany herself. The United States must be neutral in fact as well as in name during these days that are to try men's souls. We must be impartial in thought as well as in action, must put a curb upon our sentiments as well as upon every transaction that might be construed as a preference of one party to the struggle.
And I mean, you would think in general, I mean, I don't know, because I'm assuming what they're trying to do is essentially stop like supplies and goods from American ships going to their allied countries. You know, we're staying neutral in the war in the terms of we're not sending troops over there to actually fight, but we're still sending goods to, you know, Britain and France and the other nations that we're allied with. So I'm assuming that's what they were trying to essentially stop with their submarine fleets. So, I mean, the idea obviously is that they want to, I would assume, again, that they want to try to stop that as much as possible while keeping America from entering the war. Because obviously you don't want to then open up another front with another large faction, and then you've got naval issues you got to worry about. So, I mean, yeah.
Before another. Woodrow Wilson, 28th President of the United States. Wilson spoke for many Americans who wanted the United States to stay out of any conflict. But there was a darker and deeper reason behind US non-interventionism. As early as the mobilization of 1914, agents of the Abteilung 3B, the Germans' elusive spy agency, had been infiltrating the highest rungs of US political life. Moving through the swathes of German expats and immigrants on the northeast, their single aim was to keep the US from intervening in any European war. This would buy the Kaiserreich the time to make a decisive strike against the Allies and claim her hegemony over the continent. Had the German Navy returned to unrestricted submarine warfare and claimed countless American lives, the Abwehr's efforts might have been
right.
in vain.
America would have had to retaliate.
With no pressing need to side against Germany, proponents of American neutrality maintained control of Congress. President Wilson, re-elected in 1916 with a slogan of "He kept us out of war," was all too willing to steer clear of foreign entanglements. 1917 was a turning point in the war diplomatically.
I wonder in this timeline what would have happened with the Depression. Would we have had a Depression or not, staying out of the war? Because I think that was one of the big factors that kind of brought on the Great Depression was, you know, part of us entering the war and then coming out of it. I could be mistaken, though. Like I said, I'm not super duper knowledgeable about that time period. It's more kind of like World War II and up. that I know more about.
Diplomatically, but also militarily. After 3 years of war, cracks had begun to show in the determination of Allied forces. Heavy French casualties at Chemin des Dames led to widespread mutiny among French troops. This disaster discourages the French High Command from continuing great offensives until the end of the year, giving Germany a chance to recover from the unmitigated catastrophe of the Brusilov offensive in the east. With both sides suffering more than 1 million casualties, the aftermath of this stunning and forward-looking offensive masterminded by General Brusilov was a pause in the Russian advance. The motherland simply had no further reinforcements to send, and further attacks were out of the question. The Central Powers, meanwhile, had taken careful note of the devastating use of carefully targeted artillery and small unit tactics with which Brusilov had found success. It was an approach which would now be turned against a Russian army which had exhausted itself. But even if German and Austro-Hungarian forces had not been preparing an assault, the Russian Empire's time was running out. A peasantry and working class furious about looming famine, military incompetence, and a lack of compassion turned their ire on Tsar Nicholas II.
There really was like so many things happening in the world during this time period that had so many lasting effects on how things turned out. It's crazy.
After riots, mass mutiny, and rebellion, the Tsar abdicates in March of 1917. A provisional government is formed under the brilliant lawyer Alexander Kerensky, but the young man's unstable reign is quickly snatched away by a new emerging faction, the feared Russian Bolsheviks, led by the enigmatic Vladimir Lenin. As the old guard of the Russian Empire and Kerensky's democratic forces form an unlikely alliance against the Red Menace, it is not long before the broiling conflict erupts in open war. The First Russian Civil War has begun. In Berlin, the news is met with delight. The Kaiser's decision to secretly assist Lenin's return to Russia has paid off, and the bear to the east is mortally wounded. Offensives drive deep into Russia, and in March 1918, Germany signs the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk with the secretly established Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic. Swathes of lands that once belonged to the Tsar now answer to the Kaiser and
That's
to
a
the
lot
Austrian
of land,
Emperor.
too. It's a lot of land and resources that are going to Germany now.
More for Emperor Karl to celebrate. The stalemate of inconclusive and bloody battles along the Isonzo River comes to an end with the Caporetto offensive, beating the humiliated Italian army back to the Piave River. Only a heroic last-minute defense prevents the Austrians from taking Venice, and when the front line has settled, the Habsburg Emperor's armies are poised and ready for a fateful push into the Italian heartland. Success for the Central Powers is not universal. The Ottoman Empire, long derided as the sick man of Europe, proves incurable. After a series of devastating raids and attacks by the dashing Lawrence of Arabia across 1917, the Sultan slowly loses control of his precious railways, lifelines to Ottoman frontline soldiers. Chronically undersupplied and outmatched by Allied and rebel Arab infantry, the Ottoman army loses Baghdad and Jerusalem to British forces.
Damn.
Celebrations in London are short-lived.
That's also a long ways away to try to keep, for the British right now, when the Germans have kind of the heart of the European continent, right? Like, that's going to be difficult for them to hold and keep supplying.
In December 1917, another blow to Allied morale rings a death knell for their relationship with the United States. On a routine patrol, a British submarine mistakenly torpedoes an American freighter carrying Christmas gifts to Germany, killing several US citizens. seizing their opportunity.
So it was the Brits that accidentally did it instead of the Germans in this scenario.
Pro-German politicians in the United States move swiftly.
Right. That definitely would have swung a lot of things in America towards the German point of view. Yeah, it's funny. And I mean, yeah, that's more than likely that's what have happened. A lot of things probably would have gone pro-Germany. Because, I mean, like, what? I don't know how much animosity there would still be in America against the Brits at this time, because it still had been a while since the Revolutionary War, and we'd gone through a Civil War and a bunch of other wars with, you know, different countries, the Spanish-American War, et cetera, et cetera. So at this time, I would think, I'm pretty sure things had really calmed down and had centralized with America and Britain being pretty staunch allies, but this definitely would have put a big, you know, dent in that.
Urging support for the Central Powers, the backlash they whip up forces Britain
especially
into a
with Germany coming to more
blockade,
prominence and power in Europe,
averting the looming spectre of famine in Central Europe. The opening of the blockade, combined with the relief of winning the war in the East, rallied German forces and set off a series of cascading events that would eventually spell doom for the beleaguered Allies on the Western Front. With Germany focused on the East, in the first half of 1918, the British and French realized that with American support no longer a reasonable expectation, the time to strike is now.
Yeah, they would have had to move. It would have forced them to, I guess, probably move up timetables and push to a new offensive, because otherwise they're going to end up getting whittled down and be destroyed without any more supplies coming from America.
At this stage in the war, the sides still seemed relatively even matched, an assumption shattered by the outcome of the Allied Great Spring Offensive. After 3 months of fighting, not one of its objectives had been met, and an irrecoverable 800,000 casualties had been suffered by the Allies.
That's huge.
The capitulation of Greece to Field Marshal Erich von Falkenhayn a month later buoyed German spirits further. With Russia eliminated and the Allies exhausted in the West, Germany has decisively claimed the initiative in the war. It is up to her to determine how to use it. She would do so in 1919. After spending the second half of 1918 biding time and redeploying forces from the Eastern Front, the German High Command begins its own great offensive, masterminded by Ludendorff. So-called infiltration tactics proved devastatingly effective, and the crucial railway hub of Amiens, the Allied headquarters, falls to Germany on the 26th of March. The British and French forces are now unable to supply one another, and even communication becomes difficult. On the 31st of May, the first short-distance artillery shots hit the capital, starting the siege of Paris. Ferdinand Koch is dismissed as supreme French commander and replaced with Philippe Pétain. A final blow is not yet delivered. The long-awaited Austrian offensive to knock it.
Yeah, I mean, that's always kind of been the center of both wars, really, was France and Germany. And that's, yeah. France holding the line, they would have taken the most casualties. The morale would have been hurt the worst, etc. Like, yeah. France, I'm sure at that point, was ready to have some kind of conclusion, especially after an offensive failed with a combined 800,000 casualties between French and British forces. Like, yeah.
Italy out of the war has stalled, and German forces are diverted to the southern front. While they will find success, Pétain and the defenders of France are granted a short operational respite. The British Army uses this time to attempt a fighting retreat to the Channel coast, hoping to withdraw safely to the United Kingdom. The Entente Cordiale is crumbling. As the hungry citizens of Paris begin to man the barricades once more, the desperate French leadership gambles everything on a counter-breakthrough in the Oise region. Miraculously, French tanks and cavalry divisions punch through the German lines, offering tantalizing hope. The lasting impact, however, is simply to delude the French high command that a further offensive would have the same success.
Gotcha.
As she throws all
trying to lead him into a false sense of hope
to link up with the isolated British forces near the coast, France's luck finally runs out. The rear of the front collapses in the face of a German counterattack. It felt like their great offensive had come again, and soon we had no more shells to fire back. Unnamed French soldier, 1919. There are no more supplies coming. Unrest and rebellion in French cities has slowed war production to a crawl. Pétain advises against surrender, but the matter is taken out of his hands by the French
what else are you going to do at this point, right?
Mutiny.
You're low on supplies, your morale's broken, you're pushed back into your own country, your capital is being taken or has been taken. You have no hope really of allied supplies coming in from Britain or America now after what happened. Like, there isn't really a whole lot more you can do at this point, right? All you're doing is throwing more bodies at the problem, and people are at a point where they're not wanting to die anymore.
France requests an armistice with the German Empire. On the 4th of October, it is signed, both sides hurrying through negotiations. One condition is that on the 6th of October, the German army's victory will become unambiguous with a march through Paris itself. Gefreiter Andreas Koch watches from the Eiffel Tower as he and his men raise the flag of the empire that now unquestionably dominates mainland Europe. The Treaty of Versailles is signed a month later, punishing and humiliating the fragile provisional French government. Its people are still up in arms. The Third Republic was born with revolutionaries in Paris and German armies victorious on its soil. It dies in much the same fashion. From Dunkirk to the Dnieper River, the guns have fallen silent on a new German continent.
Yeah.
However, just across the Channel, an Allied power remains. The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, still confident in the might of her Royal Navy, refuses to come to terms. The stage is set for the Second Battle of Jutland, and the war seems far from over.
All right.
To be continued.
Interesting. Okay, so that was part one. That was part one of this Kaiserreich Universe documentary series by Kaiser Cat Cinema. Links as always will be down below in the description to the original video without my commentary interaction and to Kaiserreich's channel. So you can do me a favor, please click those links if you enjoy this video as we go through it, give it a like, and if you enjoy this documentary series and the rest of the content that Kaiser Cat Cinema has on their channel, go over there and show them in some love, give them a sub. It's interesting seeing how a lot of these major events have changed. You know, the flipping of it's the British accidentally destroying, you know, a civilian American ship, further pushing America away from interfering and supplying the Allies, and just how a lot of these different events, a civil war breaking out in Russia allows Germany to capture more territory and secure a buffer zone between them and Russia, and just allowing them to also have more resources, and that allows them to can then concentrate on the Western Front against, you know, France, and concentrate all of their fighting against France, and they, you know, are able to then take over Central Europe essentially, and most of it. So it's just interesting to see how these different events have taken place And yeah, I'm curious to see how the naval battles are going to go, because I don't really think in World War I, I could be mistaken, but the you know, air power was still kind of becoming a new thing with planes. So I don't think air superiority was quite as big then as it was during World War II and since, whereas nowadays, you know, air superiority kind of, if you have air superiority, you kind of win the war nowadays in most cases. So it'll be interesting to see. I would assume it's mostly going to be German subs against any kind of you know, British fleet. So it'll be interesting to see how we go from there. Got distracted by a landlord. Basically want to know. Nice. War One was super close at the end. It just came down to, yeah. So yeah, look forward to continuing this series and seeing where the lore of this goes. So like I said, links will be down below in the description to all the stuff. If you'd like to join us when we do these reactions live, there is a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I offer. Been around the channel for a while and like to take your support to the next level, check that out, see if any of that have any interest for you. You can get priority on any kind of reaction requests, early access to videos, stuff like that. Just check that out, see if it would be any kind of interest for you. But thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider leaving a like and a sub, as it helps me and the channel grow. And we'll see you guys on the next one.